Guys, I know I'm not the only one losing my mind due to this COVID-19 stuff, and the one thing that has completely shaken my life up the most is the fact that all gyms are closed. So now I have to come up with brand new workouts, and I have to do them at home. But even more so, I need to figure out a way to listen to my music without disrupting the rest of my household. And typically I'd have a lot of difficulty doing that because most earbuds would slip out of my ear, or I would be able to hear everyone else's racket as I'm working out and would completely disrupt my workout. But that's why I love the Raycon Everyday E25 earbuds, because they're these two beautifully designed earbuds that, first of all, slips right into your ear, and then second of all, you don't hear a single thing once they're in your ear. They're completely noise isolating. I love using them for when I work out, and I really enjoy using them for when I'm editing videos. And furthermore, they're so inexpensive. They're a much higher quality earbud than any other earbud on the market, and the sound quality is significantly better. They also gave me a 15% off code for you guys to use, so either click my link in the description down below or go to buyraycon.com/FlightMike for 15% off. And thank you to Raycon for the sponsor. Now guys, before we get started, just a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not going to hold it against the team if they weren't able to successfully identify a very good developmental prospect and fail to select them. Meaning, I am not going to hate on any team for failing to draft Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo, because those players weren't coming out of the draft as complete players. It was the teams that got their hands on them that were able to successfully develop them into good players. So if they happen to make a mistake there, I'm not going to hold it against them. But at number 8, and this is more of an honorable mention because I believe every player that I'm about to list at number 8 is going to end up having a great career, I have the Sacramento Kings drafting Marvin Bagley over Luka Doncic and Trae Young. And this is not to say that Marvin Bagley isn't going to have a great career. He's a fairly solid player, but based off of the career trajectories of all three of these players, we could both agree that Luka Doncic and Trae Young are on a completely different level in terms of where they could take their teams than Marvin Bagley is. And given the fact that the Sacramento Kings absolutely needed a culture-changing talent, and don't get me wrong, Marvin Bagley was supposed to be the top player in his high school class prior to reclassifying to the class of 2017 coming out of high school. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but Coach K was trying to get Marvin Bagley, Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, Trae Jones, and Cam Reddish all on one team for his starting 5. That would have been absolutely terrifying, and Duke would have possibly won the NCAA championship had that have happened. But the Sacramento Kings opted to make the mistake of going for need as opposed to talent, and I understand they had De'Aaron Fox at the point guard position, and you don't want to draft another point guard in Trae Young, and also De'Aaron Fox needs the ball in his hands in order to make plays for his other teammates, and don't get me wrong, he's developing very, very well. But dude, Luka Doncic and Trae Young appear to be transcendent talents, once in a generation type talents, and the fact that they drafted a solid player over two players that appear to be absolutely incredible in just the second year of their NBA careers has to sting a little bit. Now again, this is more of an honorable mention. For all you know, Marvin Bagley could turn out to be a beast. All these players' careers are still fairly young, so I'm not really holding it against the Sacramento Kings, but you're going to see the Sacramento Kings quite a couple of times in this entire video, and I guess that's why I included them at the number 8 spot. At number 7, the Detroit Pistons draft Brandon Knight over KEMBA Walker in the 2011 NBA draft. Now, something you guys have to understand about the 2011 NBA draft, at the time, it was considered to be an extremely weak draft at the time. And if you look at the draft, within the first 10 picks, there's only 2 players that have ever made it to an NBA All-Star game. Obviously, the players that were supposed to only be role players ended up blossoming. You have Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Vucevic, and KLAY Thompson. But at this point in time, the Detroit Pistons desperately needed a good point guard. The Detroit Pistons at this time were doing absolutely anything to generate some sort of buzz about their team. They went ahead and signed Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva to these ridiculous contracts, and Ben Gordon became a shell of his former self once he got to Detroit. I don't blame them. I thought Ben Gordon was going to be fantastic. Did you guys see his final playoff series against the Boston Celtics? That guy looked like a guy that could be a franchise talent, but unfortunately, every single move that Joe Dumars made for some reason blow up in his face, whether it was the signing of Tracy McGrady, the drafting of Greg Monroe, who was fairly solid earlier in his career, the fact that he went ahead and drafted Brandon Knight over Kemba Walker. Now, this wasn't that big of a mistake. Brandon Knight was a fairly solid player. He just didn't turn out to be as good as Kemba Walker was. But there's a lot of teams that absolutely botched this draft. More specifically, our favorite team, the Sacramento Kings. And here's what the Sacramento Kings did. So, to lay out the framework of the NBA draft in 2011, the Sacramento Kings originally had the 7th pick and were in a very good position to either take Jimmer Fredette, Kemba Walker, or KLAY Thompson. And bear in mind, the Kings desperately needed help at the point guard position, and the year prior, they already made a phenomenal move drafting DeMarcus Cousins at number 5. So things were beginning to look up for the Sacramento Kings, but unfortunately, the Kings opted to trade out of the number 7 pick. And while they drafted Bismack Biyombo and traded him to Charlotte, and in return, Charlotte would send Bino Udrih to the Bucks, and then the Milwaukee Bucks would send the Sacramento Kings Jimmer Fredette. So bear in mind, instead of just sitting pat and drafting Kemba Walker, the Sacramento Kings essentially drafted Jimmer Fredette. And here's the thing that sucks the most. They could have also drafted KLAY Thompson, and had they have drafted KLAY Thompson, you could make the argument that that team, the Sacramento Kings, would have been absolutely complete. You see, DeMarcus Cousins was dominating at the center position, and guess who they had coming off of the bench? Yes, Hassan Whiteside. The 2010 NBA draft was a really good NBA draft for the Sacramento Kings, if you couldn't figure it out. But instead, they opted to take Jimmer Fredette, and I really don't blame them. Jimmer Fredette looked like the next coming of Steph Curry coming out of college, and I would have even bought into that hype. Unfortunately, though, sometimes moves just blow up in your face, and this was one of them. At number 5, the Cleveland Cavaliers draft Anthony Bennett, number 1 overall, over Victor Oladipo. And here's the thing, this is another one of those scenarios where a team literally just looked for what do we need as opposed to who is the best talent available. And for some reason, here's the issue with that. Sometimes the front office isn't sold enough on the talent on the board to the point where they're willing to make a logjam at that position. And I'm assuming that's what the Cleveland Cavaliers did. The reason why this is ranked so low, this is the number 5th worst draft pick ever, and Anthony Bennett is considered to be one of the most egregious draft busts in NBA history, is because this was an absolutely horrific draft. I'm not going to expect the Cleveland Cavaliers to take Giannis Antetokounmpo, who literally had like one grainy video of himself and was unable to be scouted and was considered to be a project player, over Anthony Bennett. But I will hate on them for taking Anthony Bennett over Victor Oladipo when Victor Oladipo would have made a seamless fit next to Kyrie Irving and Tristan Thompson in that young Cleveland Cavaliers core. Ultimately, we all know what would happen to Anthony Bennett. He would get packaged with Andrew Wiggins in a trade for Kevin Love, so this wouldn't ultimately impact the Cleveland Cavaliers to this point, but it's still a fairly egregious mistake. But again, the 2013 NBA draft was a fairly weak NBA draft, save for Victor Oladipo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Rudy Gobert. At number 4, this was an absolutely heartbreaking one for me because I'm a huge fan of this player. The Milwaukee Bucks draft Jabari Parker over Joel Embiid. Now you have to understand, Jabari Parker's career isn't really his fault. It's really like, before I get to I'm probably going to hardcore defend this guy because his entire career was derailed by injuries, and ironically, Joel Embiid came into the NBA draft with severe injury issues. And what's even more comical about this entire NBA draft was it was considered to be one of the deepest NBA drafts in recent memory. It was supposed to be going into the draft. You know, Aaron Gordon, Jabari Parker, Dante Exum, Marcus Smart, and Julius Randle were incredibly hyped up prospects. Noah Vonleh was considered to be a player that was a project player, but whoever got him and really developed him would potentially get a potential beast that could stretch the floor. But that's not what ended up happening. The Milwaukee Bucks ended up drafting Jabari Parker, and he would have 2 ACL injuries. And eventually, after his contract expired, the Bucks didn't try to sign him again. He was considered to be the franchise player of that roster until, well, Giannis Antetokounmpo came onto the scene. And once it became obvious that Jabari Parker was no longer the focal point of the Milwaukee Bucks, and that the Milwaukee Bucks couldn't really offer him anything, he started bouncing from team to team to team. Last year, he signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with the Chicago Bulls. Didn't really work out for them. He got traded mid-season to the Washington Wizards, and then this past offseason, he signed with the Atlanta Hawks, and currently, I believe he is on the Sacramento Kings. I really hope he gets it together because it's very unfortunate what happened to him. But what's even suckier about this is, could you imagine Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the same team together? That is absolutely terrifying. But unfortunately, that's not the scenario we're in today, and hopefully Jabari Parker could get his career together. At number 3, we have possibly my favorite pick on this entire list, and that's the Boston Celtics finesse the Philadelphia 76ers in the 2017 NBA draft, trade out of the number 1 overall pick spot to the number 3 spot, and draft Jason Tatum, while the Philadelphia 76ers draft Markelle Fultz. Believe it or not, I was making NBA videos at this time, and I was making news content, and I remember in one of my videos, I literally showed a Boston Celtic fan burning a Markelle Fultz jersey, like a custom-made Markelle Fultz jersey, and I was like, what the hell? Celtic fans are absolutely out of their freaking minds. And here's the thing, you guys know me, I'm a Laker fan, but I absolutely love the way Danny Ainge conducts business. He's ruthless, bro. He is absolutely ruthless, and this was one of the most ruthless things he's done. I don't know if he saw into the future about Markelle Fultz, or if he just had his eyes on the Kyrie Irving trade, so he felt like he didn't really need Markelle Fultz, but trading out of the number 1 spot and ending up with the best player out of possibly the entire top 10 deserves heaps and heaps of praise. Now look, you can make an argument for a myriad of mistakes in this draft. You know, you could say that the Lakers should have taken Jason Tatum over Lonzo Ball. You could have said that the Phoenix Suns should have drafted Donovan Mitchell at the number 4 spot as opposed to the number 13 spot. But here's the thing, Donovan Mitchell, no one really saw that coming. He surprised all of us, and I feel like a good portion of Mitchell's success had to do with the fact that Gordon Hayward left the Utah Jazz, which left a role that needed to be occupied as the primary scorer in Quinn Snyder's offense. But for the most part, we know what happened with Markelle Fultz, and I'm not saying that his career can't get back on track at this point, but he's no longer a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers literally shipped him off for literally nothing. I don't mean to be rude, but they literally just sent him to the Orlando Magic for like Jonathan Simmons, and Jonathan Simmons isn't even on the roster anymore. Like, that was a huge L. But yeah, man, you could say what you want about Danny Ainge. That was a brilliant move, and he's really good at managing his assets. At number 2, we have our good old friends, the Sacramento Kings, back up on this list again when they draft Thomas Robinson over Damian Lillard and Andre Drummond. Now, here's the thing you guys have to understand. This NBA draft, the 2012 Anthony Davis NBA draft, was considered to be a race between Thomas Robinson and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis won by a long shot. Like, he was a physical mismatch, and we all understood that. But Thomas Robinson had the heart, the work ethic, and the grind as a traditional center. But here's the thing that happened. Well, traditional power forward. But here's what caused Thomas Robinson to fall down the boards. His size was very, very sketchy. He was 6'8", but furthermore, he seemed extremely one-dimensional. And the Sacramento Kings ultimately learned that at the number 5 spot because Thomas Robinson was there, and he was traded in the middle of the season. In the middle of his rookie season, he was traded to the Houston Rockets. That is just a horrible move by the front office, by the Sacramento Kings. Meanwhile, they absolutely needed a point guard. They botched the draft previously, but I guess they were still giving Jimmer Fredette a chance because they ended up not rolling with Damian Lillard. You could only wonder what a lineup of DeMarcus Cousins, Damian Lillard could do with Hassan Whiteside and Isaiah Thomas coming off of the bench. Oh my God, the Kings could have been so good. And my number 1 biggest mistake in the past 10 years has to go to the Philadelphia 76ers draft JAHLIL OKAFOR over KRISTAPS Porzingis. And let me tell you why this was such a terrible move. the Sixers were in the position to make this gamble. They had Joel Embiid literally trying to recover from a knee injury, and they stashed him. And at the same time, the best prospects you could take at this point was either JAHLIL OKAFOR or KRISTAPS PORZINGIS. There were rumblings about the Sixers wanting to take D'Angelo Russell, but the Lakers ruined that for them. But you had the opportunity to take KRISTAPS PORZINGIS. You could have created this crazy lineup where all of your players in the lineup could spread out the floor and shoot threes, and at the same time dominate in the post. You could have ran some sort of triangle offense on steroids if you were able to draft KRISTAPS PORZINGIS here, but ultimately the Philadelphia 76ers opted to draft JAHLIL OKAFOR. He was in the doghouse, honestly, as soon as Joel Embiid came back, and after that he was shipped off to the Brooklyn Nets for practically nothing, and he's currently with the Pelicans as a role player. The issue with Okafor was he was drafted as the NBA was shifting away from the offensive center that couldn't really play defense but could only dominate in the post. But yeah, those are my biggest mistakes in the NBA draft over the past 10 years. Let me know in the comment section if I messed something up or if something shouldn't be here. Aside from that, I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'll catch you guys in our next one.